Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Eccentric, the makers of the K-Box and the new K-Pulley. Guys, flywheel training's really grown in popularity of late, and although it's something that's been around for a while, the simple reason that it's grown in popularity is because it works. We've been lucky to have a K-Box in our weight room for the past 3 years, and we've seen some really great things when it comes to improving the athlete's ability to change direction, and then looking at our return to play protocols with different lower body injuries with the student athletes. The love-hate relationship that everyone has with the K-Box is now just going to grow more with the addition of the K-Pulley. The ability to do standing presses, pulls, rip-throughs, and knee drive exercises is just going to be another arsenal to our training and another addition to the love-hate relationship that our student athletes have with the awesome tools that come from Eccentric. Go ahead and hop over to eccentric.com today to check out what they have. Guys, I can't recommend it enough, and I guarantee you won't be disappointed, not just with the products, but with the awesome customer service that Eccentric provides. Hey everybody, if you enjoy the podcast and the content that it provides, make sure you hop over and check out the all-new Strength Coach Network. The Strength Coach Network is a combination of the CVA SPS community and the Rugby Strength Coach community, bringing you what is sure to be the internet's leading resource for continuing education for strength and conditioning professionals. Combining these two resources has allowed us to bring some of the best content from some of the best minds in the world together for your one-stop shop to better improve the continuing education for not just yourself, but your entire staff. Bringing together all of the lectures from the Rugby Strength Coach community, along with the lectures exclusively done for the Central Virginia Sport Performance community, and all the lectures performed at the Central Virginia Sport Performance Seminar, make this an absolute must for performance coaches around the world. The world-class lectures at the Strength Coach Network are not all that you'll see as well. The discussion in the forums and the support and the career guidance from some of the top practitioners in the world, from people all over the world, makes this an absolute must and a great place for you to network, learn, and grow as a performance professional. So hop on over to strengthcoachnetwork.com and use the code CVASPS, that's C-V-A-S-P-S, to get your 48-hour trial for only $1. We're sure you're going to find great value in the Strength Coach Network and are really excited to have you involved. So hop on over to strengthcoachnetwork.com and use the code CVASPS to check it out today. Hello, and welcome to the podcast. Today, guys, I have the absolute pleasure of sitting down and talking with Newtown Jet strength and conditioning coach Graeme Morris. Graeme and I are going to sit down and get right into it, guys, and talk about training, what Graeme's philosophy is, how he's developed over the years as a strength and conditioning coach, the impact other coaches have on him, and even gets into a pretty significant breakdown of the 8-week preseason that he used with his players and how that progression went through. We finish off talking about some of the Bosh methods and how he sees it, where he implements it, and kind of the pros and cons that he sees with the whole thing. This is really an awesome talk, guys. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Let's get right to it. Graeme, so
Jay.
Awesome we could finally get you on the show, brother. Stoked to have you.
Yeah, mate. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah,
It's been a while.
No, I know, right? What, it's been like 3 weeks.
Yeah, 4 maybe.
Oh, wow. It's been that long?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, hey, man, for the people out here that didn't make the trip down here in July and didn't get to meet you, give them an intro. Let them know who Graeme Morris is.
Yeah, Graeme. Currently, I'm the strength and conditioning coach of the Newtown Jets Rugby League Club, which is essentially it's one division from the very top, so reserve grade NRL. And we are in amongst our finals right now. So I've been here 5 seasons. And on the side, I just train general population and stuff and do some online stuff and things like that. But yeah, we're in amongst our finals. We just lost our first one on the weekend. But we've got a second chance. So we had a few dodgy calls go against us, but we regroup this week and we'll give it another crack.
You know, the one thing that I've always said, man, is like referees are just awful people.
I can't say that just in case we get dodgy calls this week.
Well, listen, you're doing some awesome stuff, over there. So let's talk about what you're doing with the Jets and kind of the program that you've built and kind of its beginnings and middles and how you've gotten to where you are with it.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started out, I guess I was very strength-based. and I was just doing a lot of power lifts and a lot of, I guess, jump variations and that to get our power. But over the period of time, I've changed the way I see things. And in terms of the weight room stuff, at the moment, I see we're trying to get either force production, force absorption, trying to prevent injuries. We're trying to get transfer to training, and we're trying to get strong in a variety of movements and patterns that which make us more rigid and robust in the field.
I love it.
Yeah. And I guess my guys, typically in rugby league, we got like a 22-3 a week season plus finals. And then we might have like a 12-week preseason. So our off season's really short, man. We only have like 6 to 8 weeks for an off season. Massive off season, right?
American football has a massive off season. Basketball, you could debate, never really has a true one.
Yeah. So I guess because of that, because of the in season such a large period of time, I think in the off season we've got to try and chase things that are going to prevent us from getting injured, and we've got to really go attack that preseason. So it's quite funny. Like after I read your manual, the season manual number 3, I read it on the plane on the way home after the seminar. And that chapter that Jim Snyder did, I remember I was messaging you, was really similar to something we did this preseason, where I was doing we started off with some long duration isometrics to begin with, and then for about 3 weeks, and then combined with our traditional lifting, just to really try and, I guess, get some tissue quality back, strengthen the ligaments, tendons, and from there we kind of went into a modified triphasic approach, which I've been running the triphasic approach for probably about 4 seasons. And my guys are typically guys that have a big base of strength already, so I think that fits in well. Like they've got a big base of strength. They've been in the gym for a number of years. Most of them are 20 years plus. Wow. So they've got some years under their belt. So so that's what we started off with this year. Really similar to that. It was just weird when I was reading that. I was like, I don't do it exactly like that, but yes, it was just funny how I started going down that route. Yeah.
I love it. But, you touched upon something that I think would be a good rabbit hole to run down, and it's one, we were talking with Jake about it a couple weeks ago on an IG Live, where he was talking about transfer training with Bonderchuk.
Oh, yeah.
And you were just you brought up things that, the things that matter when they come to transfer training. Like, what are some things that you've seen with your 5 years down there that have been really aha moments when it comes to things that have shown up with how the guys have been playing in matches?
Yeah, well, first of all, I had to have a 6-hour commute with Jake from Jeff's place in Pittsburgh to you. And the conversations I had with him was just blowing my mind. So that was some of the best conversations I've ever had. But one thing I've come to realization over the last few seasons is that the best athlete is really the best athlete in the weights room. And I guess just keeping guys on the pitch and being able to, I guess, absorb forces on the pitch, and allowing them to just do the actual specific training and play games is probably our number one attribute we can do as a strength coach. I think that's the number one thing I've realised. When I first come in, I thought, gym this, gym that. We're going to turn these guys into monsters, but we can try and do that. But the main thing we've got to do is make sure we're not taking away energy from guys being able to perform on the field, because that's the most specific thing that's going to increase transfer to your competition exercise.
100%.
So
let's get into that ride down. So what were some things too that you guys were talking about when it came to, how you're putting things together, how you're identifying exercises, and what are some things that you're doing down there to help with that?
In regards to injury or regards to transfer?
In regards to transfer.
Well, we always use the Bonderchuk classifications and look at Verkhoshansky's dynamic correspondence. And I try and break down, kind of like Keir does, I look at what the key movements are on the field. And obviously in rugby league, there's a lot of different movements happening, but I break it down into linear speed, multi-directional speed, and then contact. And contact could be either I guess, with the ball, trying to get your post-contact meters. So after you hit a play, you're just trying to get that leg drive. Or it could be you're a defender and you're trying to win the tackle and then dominate them and put them on their back. So they're the attributes I look at. And then I also look at it from a positional point of view, is what adaptations and, I guess, movements are going to transfer to your required position. So if you're in the middle and you're a big guy, you obviously got to be a bigger, more powerful guy, more robust, and you got to run through brick walls. But if you're further out on the edges of the field, you're going to need more, I guess, max velocity, more footwork, and you got to be able to repeat those high intensity efforts a little bit more. But you need more, I guess, velocity dominant exercises as well. So at the start of the season, we're probably a lot more, everyone's doing very similar things. It's quite general in nature. There's still some specialised stuff in there, which I'm always trying to transfer across to those three main things, linear speed, multi-directional speed, and being strong in contact. But as we get closer throughout the preseason, we'll then have, I guess, more exercises that are going to create adaptations they're going to transfer across for those specific type positions. So it might only be like 15% difference in the program, or 20%. But these guys will have certain exercises. So like our big guys might do a lot more weighted sled work, just so that they're learning to power through contact. And then our outside backs, which is more of a speed position, might have like more hurdle hop stuff, lateral ply work. If that makes sense.
No, 100%. So let's break down that 8 weeks then leading into your 20+ week season. So how do you how does that separation start, and how do you identify what you're separating, how you're separating, and when you're separating?
Okay, so we typically have 6 weeks before Christmas, and that's, I guess, your general prep, and then that's when we're just doing, I guess, starting with a little less intensive lifting from 70% up to our 85, in which we're doing those long duration isometrics. Everyone's doing a similar program, and which then becomes eccentric focused. And then after Christmas, we might do another week of eccentric focus, just low volume, just to so we don't break them. Then we're going to isometric focus for a few weeks, and then we start going at our rate force development exercises. And then when it comes to trial games, which is normally about February, we start to deload the guys and focus more on speed strength, and then we'll use those positional type movements. But even though they're blocks, they're not really blocks. I try and make it so it's flowing. There's no distinct blocks, even though we say it's blocks. Does that make sense?
100%.
So we always use general principles, progressions like general to specific, extensive to intensive. What else is there? There's a few others, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I have a general principles that go through, and I'm trying to make it flow rather than being distinct blocks.
Now, with the squad, do these progressions between positions differ for first year, second year, third year guys? Or is it because of the size, you're kind of stuck bringing them in groups and kind of bucking them that way? Yeah,
well, one of the major problems I have is obviously my guys are reserve grade, so a lot of them are still full-time workers, okay? So just due to the nature of it, a lot of these guys are like manual labourers, hard-working jobs, so they'll come in staggered. So I don't get them all at once and break them up like that. They'll come through staggered, if that makes sense. Like 5 might turn up at once, then another 5 will come half an hour later. So it makes it quite difficult coaching that way. But it's just the nature of the game, unfortunately. But in terms, like if I've got a first year player, the program won't be that specialised. It'll become more general. Does that make sense?
100%.
They won't be doing a lot of that stuff. They'll just be doing general lifts. And it might just be traditional general lifts, and we're just trying to bring up strength. You don't, as my friend Jeff Moy always says, you don't try and, what's he say? Don't kill a fly with a sledgehammer. And I think I heard you say you don't cure flu with chemo or something.
Yeah, you don't give them chemo for a cold, but I stole that from Yosef, so
yeah. So we that's none of my programs are written in pen. It's all in pencil. And depending on where they at, it's going to be modified. But if they're a relatively new athlete with a low training age, we won't be throwing all these fancy things at them. It's going to be the program's be quite basic and general in nature. And then, but on the flip side of that, Jay, like I don't know how long my guys are going to be with me. Like, it's not like a college system when you know you're going to have them for 4 years. Like this season, I've probably had a turnover of 30 new athletes at the start of the season. You know, and
how many?
Well, preseason we probably had 40 to start with, and I probably only had 10 guys from last year. It was a massive turnover, you know. So
why
guys
is it
are trying
so high?
Because guys are trying to get a contract in top grade, so they might move on to other clubs. Our coaching staff might say, you guys aren't, you know, we're trying to go in another direction. They'll just analyse that, and then so there's a huge turnover. Trying to keep in that year, and then rebuild around that.
That's wild.
So it makes it really difficult preseason. And that's different to like an NRL system, like say a top. They'll have like a lot more stable compared to what I do. But I guess you're just trying to put those. But that's the other thing, Jay. With those, what I find with is like when you have a high turnover of players, a lot of the time the basic fundamentals of lifting are not always there. So those long duration isometrics and I guess breaking down the listen to triphasic really helps with intermuscular coordination of the general lifts. Like if you get guys holding that bottom position, say of a split squat, in the hardest position, and then when you finally go into a split squat, all of a sudden they're moving like effortless. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're moving nicely for full range of motion and with good control.
Yeah, no, I love it. We have one more with my advanced guys of the 2 weeks we were doing that. So it's a 1x20 with that in there. So it's like a squat, and then they split squat both, lateral squat both. We're doing a seated calf raise with both, and like a push up and a hold with both, and then just some other general prep stuff. And I don't think the kids like me very much, but I think they're going to like me later.
Yeah. Well, I've even thought about in my first like 3-4 week block, even been making some of the assistant exercises 1x20. With my guys, I don't know if I'll get away with it, the primary lifts, but you can make a little circuit on the end with a few exercises 1x20, just hitting those spots where we're trying to prevent injuries. But I haven't fully worked it out how I'm going to do that yet.
Yeah, my guys love it because they'd rather get in and out of the weight room as fast as possible.
Yeah. Some guys love lifting, others hate it.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. So then, with all that massive turnover and being constantly in that kind of beginner stage, more or less, more often than not, how do you then incorporate the movement stuff, which is going to help increase that transfer? And where have you seen some success with that? Because you do put out a lot of cool stuff with that on Instagram. So where have you been digging in these holes and finding these things, and what have you seen that's really helped you out the most with your athletes?
I just try and steal stuff from better coaches than me. So, I mean, even though these guys are coming relatively new, some of them still have a high training age. So, but I mean, are you asking which coaches I look from to get these exercises, or? Yeah,
and then like, what have you done, and what progressions are you using right now that you've had some really good success with?
Yeah, I mean, I've stolen some specialized stuff from like Yeesus that Jeff showed me, some of those things for like the knee drive exercises I really like. But then I've also just looked at the principles of dynamic correspondence, and I've produced some of those exercises just in my own head, and then try and regress from there, if that makes sense. And then with the specialized stuff, I guess that's more in our realization block, some of those exercises for player's position. So if I think, say, a high hurdle hop is going to be beneficial for max velocity for my more athletic players, the outside backs, I'm not going to start with that. There's going to be a base of extensive plyometrics before that to start with. And then it might be force absorption for your plyometrics. So it'll be jumping over the hurdle and landing with good mechanics. And then the next stage might be jumping over the hurdles with like a double tap deeper in the angles, which is called plyometric strength. And then the last phase might be plyometric power, where the ground's hot and in the minimum knee bend, and we're trying to get that, I guess, more reactive element and get that transfer across to the sprinting. So we always have progressions towards that.
I love it. I love it. So then,
Yeah.
when you break down those other exercises and specialized ones, like, how are you identifying those? And then, like, that's a great example. So break down some other things that you're doing when it comes to, like, let's say your outside guys, where you're talking about they need more of a change of direction and movement that way. Like, how are you looking at that as opposed to breaking down those special exercises you'll do, for the big uglies in the middle who are banging with everybody all day?
Yeah, well, in terms of the heavy sled stuff, like for me, that's not like hugely intensive. It doesn't have to be a great progression for that, because it's such an ease. It's like you just learn it in a couple of seconds. So it all depends on the exercise, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes, like if you just load up a sled and start pushing it heavy, there's no learning time. It's not that stressful on the body, so you don't have to worry about things like that. But then we have an exercise where, I don't know if you've seen guys, the big guys are palming away a boxing, like it's like doing a stiff arm, right? In American football. Mm-hmm. So I swing the boxing bag at them, and they're grabbing their hand and pushing off. So we might start at upper body reactive stuff. It might start with like a plyometric push up and absorb at the start. Then it becomes more reactive. Then we might get into more medicine ball type things, and then it'll become more specific with the boxing bag type stuff. So similar principles, general specific. And then the same thing with, like, if you're trying to do a cutting movement, we might just go like a height, lateral jump and absorb, and then it'd be lateral jump back and forth, and then you go from a box higher. You're just increasing intensity and specificity of the movement.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So then where does your fitness work fit in with all this?
My fitness work? Yeah, well, my conditioning is probably, a lot of people doing a lot of mass type running over here. It's really big, max aerobic speed stuff. And they're what I find is other coaches are starting with, the VO2 grids, and they're getting to 120%, into the 130, 30% mass type stuff. I've stripped mine right back. The last two preseasons, I started off just with extensive tempo, linear, one day, extensive tempo, multi-directional tempo. We're doing shuffles, curves, decel. And then another day, I just began with threshold training. So, I say 90% of mass is roughly anaerobic threshold. So we'll do starting off at 80% and doing threshold runs. And just working that for that first 6-week block. And I found the results to be a lot better than just doing normal mass running. And also, it's a lot less intense. And especially for guys that have been working all day. Sometimes I think you're better off finding those less intense methods to boost, your fitness, so that you can use the more high intense stuff later on. Because if you start high, where do you go from there? So that's how I started this year, and last year. And then after Christmas, we started, doing more intense things, more lactic capacity and power movements, but rather than doing it just like mass running, we looked at things that fatigue you on the field and worst case scenarios, and typically it's getting up off the ground, running into contact, then doing a short sprint. So we started doing those type of drills, which are a lot more specific, I think. But I think that the best thing you can do is have that conversation with your head coach, the coaches, and try and, look at how they can change their drills that are going to be more beneficial and transfer to the field, so that you're not doing all this extra fitness when you can just do something a lot more specific. So can we somehow put a constraint on the drills so that our athletes are getting, conditioned that way?
How much of a say do you have in that setup with practice?
Not a huge amount, but a little bit. Yeah. I always ask at starts, what are we doing today? And then I might, throw in a couple of my ideas, and they'll either say piss off, or sometimes I'll take it on board.
I love it.
But But no, I think you got to have that relationship with your coach, and I've been there for 5 years now, so he takes on quite a bit on board what I have to say. I'm sure you have the same relationship.
I love that. No, I love that because I think that like.
But Jay, I'm aware that I'm not a coach, so you got to the ideas I always have aren't always going to be perfect, but you can throw the idea out there to see what they think.
No doubt. But what I do love about that is how you're talking about you pulled away because they were having a hard time maybe adapting to the stress, and now you're seeing things improve later on, and that's awesome.
I guarantee you that a lot of my players say this is quite easy, but I feel amazing. And then at the end of the day, if you're testing, like we're testing, and my guys are going up in fitness, you don't win medals for training harder. As long as the results are going up, and you doing it that way, I find I had a lot less soft tissue injuries as well. And with all the tempo stuff, mate, the multi stuff, and hopefully that's going to carry over to when guys are under fatigue. So they're running with more efficiency. And if you're running with more efficiency, you're going to boost fitness, aren't you? As well as speed, hopefully.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So then I guess
you're limiting injuries. And you're limiting your injuries. Yeah.
I love that, which was going to be my next question is, with taking that back, have you seen these last 2 years? I mean, I know you're still going, so knock wood.
Yeah.
That the guys have been healthier.
Yeah, in terms of soft tissue injuries, for sure. But in a contact sport, you can never prevent injuries. Especially, but I mean, as a strength and conditioning coach, we're always looking at those soft tissue injuries, aren't we? And they're the ones we're really trying to prevent. But sometimes, we do have a say in contact injuries as well, because if you guys, like, I love how you're wearing that shirt, but at the end of the day, you've got to do something. You have to be able to absorb load and produce force. Otherwise, if you have a collision-based sport, if you're not physically prepared for that, you're going to have contact injuries. So, we have a say in that as well.
To an extent, I think that like
some things you can't prevent, but
right.
Guys still have to be able to absorb and produce force.
No doubt about it. Now you were talking about some stuff that you learned from Jeff and from Doc. You talked about some stuff that you learned from Kier. And I'd be remiss, since I'm wearing the shirt, to talk about some of the interesting stuff that this guy's put out that you've used. Let's talk a bit about that, because I think that that's one that unless you're like, in America, unless you're like really in like the Chris Korfist and Tony Holler school of thought, I don't know if people really understand a lot of what he talks about, me included. So let's talk about some things that you've run into there with some success.
I mean, in terms of the Bosh theories and that?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the theories, but I've played around with some different things. But like, at the end of the day, if you don't understand what you're doing, you've got to be very careful. And the other thing, I think you have to, are you measuring what you're trying, are you getting improvements in what what you're trying to achieve? And I'm not seeing a whole heap of people show me those results yet. But I think a lot of the theories are really, really interesting. I think there's definitely a place for coordination, and but never go full Bosh. I think if you're using those theories and you're forgetting about every other thing that has evidence, and you're going to you seesaw to the other way, I don't think that's right. But if you're using some of his theories and sprinkling that in, and into other proven methods, I think that's probably the way to go. And I think things like I guess I've been using a lot of more of the isometric hamstring protocols, but I still use eccentric work. So I use a combination now. But definitely like the Bosh with the isometric hamstring stuff, I've taken on board. Some of the exercises, which is already in the triphasic stuff anyway, but starting from a dead stop, and what's that? It's trying to reduce muscle slack. And then, making your drills on the field before training, things like rather than just doing basic A skips, making those coordination, those drills a little bit tougher so that athletes do fail. And you're trying to challenge the athlete rather than just do a basic warm-up over time. Just start challenging them, challenge the system. But yeah, I'm still playing around with all that, but I don't lose sight of all the other things that have worked for me in the past. And I think you got to put it all together, rather than if you're just going, I don't think you want to go one, always be on the one side. Yeah.
No, because you can never go full Bosh. But so, like, with the coordination stuff, and this is the kind of thing, these are the things that, like, fascinate me, because, obviously, with Jeff and I being tight, the Bernstein stuff and all of that, when it comes to the motor learning. So talk about some of the stuff you've done for coordination, because I think that, like, no matter what sport it is, I think that that's really, really an important thing.
Yeah, well, the main thing I do, I steal Chris Corfus's drills. I'm going to tell you straight up now. That's why when I met Chris at the seminar, I steal all of Chris's drills. And he's quite highly he's a big fan of Franz Bosch, so I steal a lot of his drills. So I indirectly steal in some of that stuff. And I really like some of the stuff John Pryor does as well. That's pretty cool. But in terms of the coordination stuff, I think we have to be putting guys, like if you start looking at putting guys into drills as well, where that's quite specific to the sport, and putting them in places where I guess they have to think and perceive what's going on, and put environmental constraints like that, that's going to have some pretty good transfer as well.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Talked about some of that stuff too when it came to his jump progression in the
rehab. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. No, I love it.
Man, I'm still learning. I don't know it all, but I don't think any of us do.
No.
But yeah, I'm still trying to get my head around some of the stuff, but yeah.
I love it, dude. I love it. Graeme, where can people find more of this stuff? Because you put out a lot. You basically put things out constantly that you're doing with the boys down there, and it really sparked my interest.
Yeah, cool. I'm trying to get to the top, man. So I need people to look at my videos. Otherwise, just the nature of where I'm at. I'm isolated, so I'm not underneath. We're underneath another club, but they're a 30-minute drive away. So I've got to put stuff out there so people can actually understand that I exist.
Yeah.
But what is it? On Facebook, I'm Graeme Morris, strength and conditioning coach. On Instagram, I'm Graeme_Morris. And then I think my Twitter's different as well. I don't use Twitter that much. I don't have time. But I think everyone's on Strength Coach now. The Strength Coaches are all on Twitter. But I'm not a huge Twitter guy. But I think it's GMorris83 or something.
Yeah, but the Graeme_Morris on Instagram.
Yeah, that's my Instagram. That's the main one I kind of post up on.
Yeah, you put a ton of really awesome stuff.
That's where all the young kids are now on Instagram. So
yeah,
I try and act like I'm young. Yeah, I don't have Snapchat gets you in trouble, man. I'll stay away from that.
Fantastic. Yeah. Oh, Graeme, I can't thank you enough for taking the time with us tonight, man. I really appreciate you being on. This is killer, bro.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, man.
Hopefully, I'll be back next year. Oh, I had the best time. That seminar was unreal. Thanks, and I've been drinking IPAs ever since, man.
Me too, brother. Cheers to you. But yeah, man, no, appreciate you being on, Graeme. This will be up real soon, dude. I can't thank you enough for the time. This is awesome.
Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, man. We'll be in touch real soon, brother.
Okay, bro.
And a huge thanks to Newtown Jet strength and conditioning coach Graeme Morris for spending the time with us today. Guys, I don't know what else you could ask for. Open, honest, candid sharing. Graeme breaking it all down for us, letting us know what he's doing, why he's doing it, where these things are coming from, and even some questions he has about some things right now that are becoming pretty popular in the world of training. It's I can't thank Graeme enough for just being so open, honest, and candid with his sharing with us today. Absolutely fantastic stuff. And guys, as always, if you did enjoy the talk, please share it through the social media outlet of your choice. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be. We are just trying to get the best information out there to all the great coaches that we can. And as always, guys, thank you for everything that you do for us here at Central Virginia Sport Performance. We will be back next week with another awesome guest. We will see you then.